3 years after he demanded she end her pregnancy, words so cruel they shattered everything between them, Daniel walked into a bookstore and saw her again. But Naomi wasn't alone. Beside her stood a little boy with curls like midnight and eyes the exact shade of grey-blue Daniel saw in the mirror every morning. His son, the child he never knew existed, the child he'd once told her to get rid of. Now Daniel was begging for a chance to know the boy who looked just like him, while Naomi held all the cards and every reason to say no. What happened next would test whether forgiveness could rebuild what fear had destroyed, and whether a man who ran from fatherhood could prove he deserved it after all. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me in the comments, could you ever forgive someone who hurt you that deeply? Tentar novamente. The bookstore smelled like old paper and vanilla candles. Daniel Hayes pushed through the door, shaking raindrops from his jacket. He'd only come in to kill time before his meeting across the street, but the warmth inside was a relief from the October chill. He wandered past the mystery section, then romance, barely paying attention to the titles. His mind was elsewhere, on work deadlines, on the apartment lease he needed to sign, on all the ordinary problems of a 31-year-old man trying to get his life together. Then he saw her. She stood near the children's section, holding a picture book, her dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. She wore jeans and a cream sweater, and even from across the store, Daniel's heart stopped. Naomi. 3 years. It had been 3 years since he'd last seen her face. 3 years since he destroyed everything between them with his fear and his selfishness. He froze, unable to move forward or back. Part of him wanted to leave before she noticed him, but his feet wouldn't cooperate. Then he saw the little boy. The child stood beside Naomi, barely tall enough to reach her hip. He had light brown skin and a head full of soft black curls. He pointed at something in the book, and Naomi smiled down at him, saying something Daniel couldn't hear. The boy turned slightly, and Daniel's breath caught in his throat. He had Daniel's eyes, the same grey-blue color, the same shape. The resemblance was impossible to miss. Daniel's knees went weak. He gripped the edge of a bookshelf to steady himself. The little boy looked to be about 3 years old. 3 years. The math hit Daniel like a punch to the stomach. He stared at the child, at Naomi, then back at the child again. His vision blurred at the edges. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. But Naomi's face told him everything he needed to know. She'd spotted him now, and her expression shifted from relaxed contentment to something harder, more guarded. She straightened, one hand moving protectively to the boy's shoulder. Daniel forced his legs to work. He walked toward them slowly, carefully, like approaching a wounded animal that might bolt. "Naomi," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. She didn't respond right away. Her dark eyes studied him with an intensity that made him feel transparent. The little boy looked up at Daniel with innocent curiosity. "Hi," the child said brightly. "Do you know my mommy?" Daniel's throat closed up. He nodded, unable to form words. Naomi's jaw tightened. "Eli, sweetheart, why don't you go pick out one more book? Stay where I can see you." "Okay." The boy, Eli, scampered off toward a display of board books, already distracted by the colorful covers. Naomi crossed her arms. "Daniel, I didn't know," he said immediately. The words tumbled out desperate and fast. "I swear I didn't know. You never told me. You made it pretty clear you didn't want to know." Her voice was steady, but Daniel heard the edge underneath it. "You made your position very clear 3 years ago." The memory crashed over him. The argument in her apartment, his panic, his selfishness, his cruelty, the way he'd demanded she get an abortion, told her he wasn't ready for a child, wasn't ready for any of this. The way he'd left when she refused to answer him right away, too scared to face what his fear had turned him into. He'd called her later, tried to apologize, but she'd already blocked his number. He'd told himself she must have gone through with it. He'd told himself a lot of lies to make himself feel less guilty. "I'm sorry," Daniel said, and his voice cracked. "Naomi, I'm so sorry. I was scared and stupid and I said terrible things. I've regretted it every single day." "Good," she said quietly. "You should." Eli's laughter drifted over from across the store. Daniel glanced at him, and something in his chest cracked open. "He's mine, isn't he?" Daniel asked, though he already knew the answer. "He's my son." Naomi's expression softened just slightly. She looked tired suddenly, like this conversation was taking something out of her she didn't have to spare. "Yes," she said. "He's yours." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. He blinked rapidly, trying to hold them back. "What's his name?" "His full name. Eli Brooks. Just my last name." She said it matter-of-factly, without judgment or accusation. "I didn't put you on the birth certificate. I didn't think you'd want to be." The words hit harder than any anger could have. She wasn't wrong. 3 years ago, he wouldn't have wanted it. The man he'd been then would have run from this responsibility as fast as he could, but he wasn't that man anymore. At least he hoped he wasn't. "Can we talk?" Daniel asked. "Please. Not here, just somewhere. Anywhere." Naomi glanced at Eli, who was now sitting cross-legged on the floor, flipping through a book about dinosaurs. "It's starting to rain harder," she said. "There's a coffee shop next door. We can sit by the window so I can keep an eye on him through the glass." Daniel nodded quickly. "Yes, thank you, thank you." The coffee shop was mostly empty on a Thursday afternoon. Naomi ordered a hot chocolate for Eli and a tea for herself. Daniel got coffee he wouldn't drink, just to have something to do with his hands. They sat at a small table by the window. Through the rain-streaked glass, they could see Eli still absorbed in his book inside the bookstore. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "Why didn't you tell me?" Daniel finally asked. "After he was born, why didn't you reach out?" Naomi wrapped her hands around her mug. "You made it clear you didn't want a child. I wasn't going to force you into something you'd resent. I would have—" Daniel stopped himself. What could he say? That he would have stepped up? Would he have? 3 years ago he'd been a different person, drowning in his own fear and immaturity. "You would have what?" Naomi's voice was gentle but firm. "Pretended to be happy about it. Stayed out of obligation. I didn't want that for Eli. I didn't want him to grow up feeling like a burden." Daniel's hands shook. He set down his coffee cup before he spilled it. "You're right," he said quietly. 3 years ago I wasn't ready. I was selfish and scared. But Naomi, if you'd told me, if I'd known he existed, I would have tried. I would have at least tried." "Would you?" She met his eyes directly. "Honestly?" Daniel thought about the man he'd been then, the man who'd put his career first, who'd avoided commitment, who'd run from anything that felt too real or too permanent. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I'd like to think I would have." Naomi's expression softened slightly. "That's an honest answer, at least." The rain pattered against the window. Inside the bookstore, Eli stood up and brought his book to the counter to purchase. "He's beautiful," Daniel said, watching his son through the glass. "He looks happy." "He is happy," Naomi said. "He's a good kid, sweet, curious, full of energy. He asks about his father sometimes." Daniel's heart clenched. "What do you tell him?" "The truth in a way he can understand. That his daddy lives far away and can't be here right now, but that he loves him very much." She paused. "I didn't want him to think he wasn't wanted. Even if you didn't know about him, I wanted Eli to believe he was loved." Daniel had to look away. Tears burned in his eyes, and this time he couldn't stop them from falling. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for that." They sat in silence for a while. Naomi sipped her tea and watched Eli through the window. Daniel tried to pull himself together, wiping at his face with the back of his hand. "I live here now," he said eventually. "In town. I moved here 2 months ago for work. I didn't know you were here. I had no idea." Naomi nodded slowly. "We've been here since Eli was born. It's a good town. Quiet. Safe. Can I see him?" The words burst out of Daniel before he could stop them. "Please, Naomi. Can I meet him? Really meet him?" She was quiet for a long time. Daniel's heart hammered in his chest as he waited. "I need to think about it," she said finally. "This isn't just about you and me anymore. It's about what's best for Eli." "I know. I understand." Daniel leaned forward, desperate to make her understand. "I'm not asking to jump into his life and turn everything upside down. I just want a chance to know him, to be his father, if you'll let me." Naomi studied him carefully, her dark eyes searching his face for something. Truth, maybe, sincerity. "The Daniel I knew 3 years ago couldn't handle being a father," she said quietly. "Are you different now?" "Yes," Daniel said immediately. Then, more carefully, "I hope so. I've grown up a lot. I've worked on myself. I'm not perfect, but I'm not that scared kid anymore." "Scared kid," Naomi repeated, a hint of something almost like amusement in her voice. "You were 28. And acting like I was 18, Daniel admitted. "I know, I have no excuses for how I treated you. I can't take back what I said or what I did. All I can do is try to be better now." Naomi glanced out the window again. Eli was coming out of the bookstore now, his new book clutched to his chest, looking around for his mother. She stood up. "I'll think about it. Give me your number." Daniel fumbled for his phone, nearly dropping it twice before managing to pull up his contact information. Naomi tapped it into her phone without comment. "I'm not promising anything," she said, "but I'll think about it, for Eli's sake. That's all I'm asking, Daniel said quickly. Thank you. Thank you so much. She picked up Eli's hot chocolate and headed for the door. Then she paused and looked back at him. Daniel? Yes? Don't make me regret this. Then she was gone, pushing through the door to where Eli waited on the sidewalk, his face lighting up when he saw her. Daniel sat alone at the table, watching through the window as Naomi crouched down to Eli's level, saying something that made the little boy nod enthusiastically. She took his hand, and together they walked down the sidewalk, disappearing into the rain. Daniel put his head in his hands and cried. The house was small but comfortable, filled with the warmth of lived-in spaces and loved children. Naomi kicked off her shoes by the door and set Eli's new book on the coffee table. "Grandma's here," Eli shouted, racing toward the kitchen. Marcia Brooks emerged, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She was 54, with silver threading through her dark hair and smile lines around her eyes that deepened when she saw her grandson. "There's my baby," she said, scooping Eli up even though he was getting too big for it. "Did you find a good book?" "Yes, it has dinosaurs and also a monster truck." "That sounds very exciting." Marcia set him down and glanced at Naomi. Her smile faded slightly. "You okay, baby girl?" Naomi managed to smile. "I'm fine, Mama. Just tired." But Marcia knew her daughter better than that. After Eli was settled in the living room with his book and a snack, she followed Naomi into the kitchen. "What happened?" she asked quietly. Naomi leaned against the counter and closed her eyes. "I saw Daniel." Marcia went very still. "Daniel? Eli's father, Daniel." "Yes. What did he want? How did he find you?" "He didn't find us on purpose. We ran into each other at the bookstore." Naomi opened her eyes and looked at her mother. "He saw Eli. He figured it out immediately." Marcia's expression hardened. "What did he say?" "That he didn't know. That he's sorry. That he wants to meet Eli." Naomi's voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly as she poured herself a glass of water. "He said he's changed." "Changed." Marcia repeated the word like it tasted bitter. "Men always say they've changed when they want something." "Mama, no, listen to me." Marcia moved closer, her voice fierce and protective. "That man told you to get rid of your baby. He walked away from you when you needed him most. You built a whole life without him, raised that beautiful boy on your own. You don't owe him anything." "I know that," Naomi said quietly, "but maybe Eli deserves to know his father." Marcia's jaw tightened. "Eli deserves a father who shows up, who stays, who doesn't run the first time things get hard." "What makes you think Daniel is that man?" "I don't know if he is," Naomi admitted. "But Mama, you didn't see his face. He was devastated, and he has a right to know his son. He gave up that right when he told you to." Marcia stopped herself, glancing toward the living room where Eli was still absorbed in his book. She lowered her voice. "When he told you what he told you." Naomi set down her glass. "I loved him once. Before everything fell apart, I really loved him. And he wasn't a bad person, he was just scared. Being scared doesn't excuse cruelty." "No, it doesn't." Naomi met her mother's eyes. "But people can grow. People can change. Don't you think everyone deserves a second chance?" Marcia was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer but still wary. "Your father left us when you were 6, she said. "You remember that?" Naomi nodded. "He said he'd changed too. Came back when you were 10. All apologies and promises. Stayed for 3 months, then disappeared again." Marcia's eyes were bright with old pain. "I'm not saying Daniel is your father. I'm saying be careful. Don't let him back in too easy, and don't let him hurt that little boy." "I won't," Naomi promised. "I'm going to be careful. If I let him meet Eli, and I haven't decided yet, it'll be on my terms. Slowly, with boundaries." Marcia studied her daughter's face, then sighed and pulled her into a hug. "You've got a good heart," she said. "Sometimes too good, but you're also smart and strong. Trust your instincts." Naomi hugged her mother back, breathing in the familiar scent of cocoa butter and lavender. "I'm scared, Mama," she whispered. "What if I'm making a mistake?" "Then you'll deal with it," Marcia said firmly. "You've handled worse. You'll handle this too." From the living room, Eli called out, "Mommy, can we read my new book before bed?" Naomi pulled back, wiping at her eyes. "Of course, sweetheart. Give me just a minute." She took a deep breath, steadying herself. Whatever happened next, she would face it. For Eli, for herself, and maybe, just maybe, for the man Daniel claimed to have become. Daniel sat in his apartment that night, unable to sleep. The place was barely furnished, a couch, a bed, a small table. He'd only moved here 2 months ago and hadn't bothered making it feel like home yet. Now, everything felt different. Everything felt urgent and real in a way it hadn't before. He had a son. The words kept repeating in his head, too big to fully comprehend. He opened his laptop and started writing. He didn't know if Naomi would ever want to read it, but he needed to get the words out, needed to say everything he should have said 3 years ago. Naomi, I don't know if you'll read this, I don't know if I'll even send it, but I need to write it anyway. 3 years ago, I was the worst version of myself. I was so focused on my own fear and my own plans that I couldn't see what really mattered. I hurt you in a way I'll never be able to fully make up for. When you told me you were pregnant, I panicked. All I could think about was how I wasn't ready, how it would ruin everything I'd been working toward. I didn't think about you. I didn't think about the life we'd created together. I only thought about myself. That's not an excuse. There is no excuse for what I said to you. There's no excuse for demanding you get an abortion, for making you feel like your choice didn't matter, for walking away when things got hard. I've spent the last 3 years trying to become someone better, someone who doesn't run from responsibility, someone who faces hard things instead of hiding from them. I can't change the past. I can't take back what I said or what I did, but if you give me a chance, even a small one, I promise I'll spend every day trying to be the father Eli deserves. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not even asking you to trust me yet. I'm just asking for a chance to show you I've changed. Please, Naomi, let me try. Daniel. He read it over twice, then saved it to his drafts folder. He wasn't ready to send it yet. Wasn't sure if he should send it at all. Instead, he pulled up his email and wrote to his friend Jack, "Hey man, something happened today that I need to tell you about. Remember Naomi, the woman I dated 3 years ago, the one I told you about? I saw her today. She has a son. My son. He's 3 years old and I had no idea he existed. I know what you're thinking. How could I not know? But she never told me. After what I said to her back then, she decided to raise him on her own. I don't blame her. I was awful to her. I said things I can never take back. But now I know about him. I saw him today and Jack, he looks just like me. And all I can think about is how I've already missed 3 years of his life. Naomi said she'd think about letting me meet him, really meet him, not just see him from across a bookstore. I'm terrified I'm going to mess this up. What if I'm still not ready? What if I hurt him the way I hurt her? But I have to try. I can't walk away from this. Call me when you can. Daniel. He hit send before he could second-guess himself. Then he sat in the dark apartment, staring at his phone, hoping Naomi would text or call, hoping she'd give him the chance he didn't deserve but desperately needed. The rain had stopped, and the night was quiet, except for the distant sound of cars on the highway. Daniel thought about Eli's bright eyes, his innocent smile, the way he'd said, "Do you know my mommy?" like it was the simplest question in the world. He thought about Naomi's guarded expression, the way she'd protected her son even while agreeing to consider Daniel's request. He thought about the man he'd been 3 years ago, selfish, scared, cruel, and the man he hoped he'd become. Somewhere across town, Eli was probably sleeping now, his son, his little boy. Daniel put his head in his hands and made a promise to himself. Whatever it took, however long it took, he would prove he'd changed. He would earn the right to be Eli's father. He wouldn't run this time, not ever again. The text came 2 days later, just when Daniel had started to lose hope. "Can you meet tomorrow at 2 p.m? There's a cafe on Maple Street called the Corner Cup. We can talk more." Daniel's hands shook as he typed back. "Yes, I'll be there, thank you." He stared at his phone for another hour, reading and rereading those 2 short messages. She hadn't said yes to letting him meet Eli yet, but she was willing to talk. That was something. That was everything. The Corner Cup was exactly the kind of place Daniel would have expected Naomi to choose. Cozy, quiet, with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. She was already there when he arrived, sitting at a corner table with a mug of tea in front of her. She looked tired. Beautiful, but tired. Daniel slid into the seat across from her, his heart pounding so hard he thought she might hear it. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I almost didn't." Naomi's voice was honest, direct. "I went back and forth about 50 times. What made you decide to come?" She looked down at her tea. "Eli asked about you." Daniel's breath caught. "He did? He's 3. He's curious about everything." Naomi wrapped her hands around her mug. "After we left the bookstore, he asked who you were. I told him you were an old friend of Mommy's. He wanted to know if you were nice, if you liked dinosaurs." Despite everything, Daniel felt a small smile tug at his lips. Does he like dinosaurs? He's obsessed with them right now. Last week it was trucks, before that it was sharks. Naomi's expression softened just slightly when she talked about Eli. He changes his favorite thing every few days. That's... Daniel's throat tightened. That's really cute. They sat in awkward silence for a moment. Daniel wanted to ask 100 questions. What's Eli's favorite food? What time does he go to bed? Does he have nightmares? What makes him laugh? But he forced himself to wait. Naomi took a breath. I've been thinking about what you said, about wanting to meet him. And? I need to know your intentions, Daniel. This isn't about you and me, it's about him. She met his eyes. If I let you into his life, and you decide in 6 months that this is too hard, that you're not ready after all, that would destroy him. I won't let that happen. I understand. Do you? Naomi leaned forward slightly. Because Eli is happy right now. He's secure. He has a life that works. If you're going to be part of that life, you need to be all in. Not halfway. Not when it's convenient. I will be, Daniel said firmly. I know I don't have the right to ask you to trust me. I know I have to earn that. But Naomi, I'm not going anywhere. I live here now. I have a good job. I'm not that scared kid anymore who runs when things get complicated. Naomi studied him for a long moment. Daniel forced himself not to look away, to let her see whatever she needed to see. Here's what I'm thinking, she said finally. If we do this, we do it slowly. You don't just show up and announce you're his father. That would confuse him and scare him. Okay, we start with you, just being around, like a friend. We spend time together, you, me, and Eli, in public places where he feels safe. You get to know him, he gets to know you. If that goes well, we can talk about next steps. Daniel nodded quickly. Yes, whatever you think is best. And there are rules, Naomi continued. You don't make promises to him you can't keep. You don't buy his affection with expensive toys. You show up when you say you will, every single time. And if you decide this is too much, you tell me, not him. You don't get to break his heart directly. I won't, Daniel said. I promise. I won't let him down. You don't know that, Naomi said quietly. None of us know what the future holds. But I need you to try. Really try. I will. Daniel's voice cracked. He's my son, Naomi. I know I wasn't there before, but I'm here now. I want to be his father. I want to be someone he can count on. Naomi was quiet for a long time, searching his face. Finally, she pulled out her phone. There's a park on the south end of town, she said. Tomorrow's Saturday. We go there most weekends. Be there at 10 in the morning. Wear something you don't mind getting dirty. There's a sandbox. Daniel's heart soared. Tomorrow, 10 o'clock, I'll be there. And Daniel? Yes? Don't make me regret this. The same words she'd said before, but this time they carried more weight. This time, they were permission and warning all at once. I won't, Daniel promised. I swear I won't. Daniel didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, playing out 1,000 different scenarios in his head. What if Eli didn't like him? What if he said the wrong thing? What if Naomi saw him with their son and realized she'd made a mistake? At 6 in the morning, he gave up on sleep and went for a run. Then he showered, changed clothes 3 times, and stood in front of his mirror trying to figure out how to look like someone's father. He'd bought a book about parenting 3-year-olds. He'd read articles about child development. He'd watched YouTube videos about how to talk to kids. None of it felt like enough. By 9:30, he was sitting in his car outside the park, watching families arrive. Young couples pushing strollers, older kids racing toward the playground equipment, a father lifting his daughter onto a swing. Daniel wondered if he'd ever be that comfortable, that natural, if Eli would ever run to him with that same easy trust. At 5 minutes to 10, he saw them. Naomi walked along the sidewalk, holding Eli's hand. The little boy wore a blue t-shirt with a dinosaur on it and light-up sneakers. He was chattering about something, his free hand waving in the air as he talked. Daniel's breath caught. He got out of the car, his legs unsteady. Naomi spotted him and said something to Eli. The little boy looked over, his grey-blue eyes, Daniel's eyes, curious and bright. "Hi," Eli called out, waving enthusiastically. Daniel's throat went tight. He managed to wave back. They met near the entrance to the playground. Eli pressed close to Naomi's leg, suddenly shy now that Daniel was right in front of him. "Eli, do you remember Mr. Daniel from the bookstore?" Naomi asked gently. Eli nodded, peeking out at Daniel. "Hi, Eli," Daniel said, crouching down to the boy's level. His voice came out rougher than he'd intended. "It's nice to see you again." "Hi," Eli said quietly. Then, more boldly, "Do you like dinosaurs?" Daniel felt a smile spread across his face. "I do. Do you have a favorite?" "T-Rex," Eli said immediately, his shyness evaporating. They're the biggest and have the most teeth, but also I like triceratops because they have horns. Those are both excellent choices, Daniel said seriously. Eli's whole face lit up. He tugged on Naomi's hand. Mommy, can we show him the sandbox? If Mr. Daniel wants to, Naomi said, her eyes meeting Daniel's over Eli's head. I'd love to, Daniel said. Eli grabbed Daniel's hand without hesitation, pulling him toward the playground. Daniel looked down at the small hand in his, so tiny, so trusting, and felt something break open in his chest. This was his son, his little boy. He was never letting go again. The next 2 hours passed in a blur of wonder. Eli was a force of nature. He ran from the sandbox to the swings to the slide and back again, narrating everything he did, asking questions about everything he saw. Why is the sky blue? How do birds fly? Can I have a snack? Daniel did his best to keep up, answering questions, pushing Eli on the swings, building elaborate sandcastles that Eli immediately destroyed with gleeful crashes. Naomi sat on a nearby bench, watching. Daniel was acutely aware of her gaze, of the test he was taking without anyone saying it out loud. Mr. Daniel, look, Eli called from the top of the slide. I'm going super fast. Be careful, sweetheart, Naomi called. Eli went down the slide, laughing the whole way. At the bottom, he crashed into Daniel's legs and looked up with a huge grin. Did you see? I was so fast. You were like lightning, Daniel said, and Eli beamed. They built a new sandcastle together, this one with a moat and towers. Eli explained very seriously that it was for a dinosaur king who ruled all the other dinosaurs. What's the king's name? Daniel asked. Rex, Eli said, like it was obvious. Because he's a T-Rex. Perfect name. Do you have a job? Eli asked suddenly, in that way kids had of jumping between topics. I do, Daniel said. I work with computers. I help fix them when they break. That's cool. Eli considered this. My mommy works at a bookstore. We get to read lots of books. I know, Daniel said softly. That's where I saw you the other day. Yeah. Eli's face brightened at the memory. I got a dinosaur book. Want to see it sometime? Daniel's heart squeezed. I would love that. Okay. Eli jumped up. I'm hungry. Mommy, can we have lunch? Naomi stood from the bench and walked over, carrying a small cooler Daniel hadn't noticed before. I packed sandwiches, she said. There's enough for everyone if you want to stay. Daniel looked at her, trying to read her expression. She seemed not hostile, not warm exactly, but softer than she'd been in the cafe. I'd like that, he said. If that's okay, it's okay. They sat at a picnic table in the shade. Naomi pulled out peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, apple slices and juice boxes. Eli chattered through the entire meal, barely pausing to chew. And then the dinosaur went raw and scared all the other animals. But then he was sad because he had no friends. So the Triceratops said they could be friends even though T-Rex was scary, and they were best friends forever. That's a good story, Daniel said. I made it up myself, Eli said proudly. Then he looked at Daniel with sudden intensity. Are you going to come back? The question hung in the air. Daniel's heart pounded. I'd like to, he said carefully. If that's okay with your mom. Eli turned to Naomi. Is it okay, Mommy? Naomi looked at Daniel for a long moment. Then she looked at her son, her expression soft and full of love. Yes, baby, she said. Mr. Daniel can come back. Yay! Eli threw his arms in the air, nearly knocking over his juice box. Daniel had to look away, blinking hard against the sudden burn in his eyes. After lunch, Eli's energy finally started to fade. He curled up against Naomi's side on the bench, his eyelids drooping. Someone's ready for a nap, Naomi said softly, stroking his hair. I'm not tired, Eli mumbled, even as his eyes closed. Daniel watched them together, the easy affection, the practiced comfort of 3 years of being everything to each other. He felt both grateful and heartbroken, knowing all the moments he'd missed. We should go, Naomi said quietly. He'll be asleep in the car in about 5 minutes. Okay. Daniel stood, not wanting the day to end. Thank you for today, for letting me... His voice broke. Thank you. Naomi adjusted Eli in her arms, preparing to carry him to the car. For a moment, she just looked at Daniel. Her expression was complicated, guarded still, but something else too. Something almost like hope. You were good with him, she said finally. He's easy to be good with, Daniel said. He's amazing, Naomi. You've done such an incredible job raising him. Something flickered in her eyes. It hasn't always been easy. I know, and I'm sorry I wasn't there to help. Naomi was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Can you walk us to the car?" "Of course." They walked slowly across the park. Eli's head rested on Naomi's shoulder, his eyes fully closed now. Daniel wanted to reach out and touch his son's soft curls, but he held back. It was too soon. There would be time. At least, he hoped there would be time. At the car, Naomi shifted to open the back door. "Can you—" she started, then hesitated. "What do you need?" Daniel asked. "Can you hold him for a second while I get his car seat ready?" Daniel's heart stopped. "Yes, of course." Naomi carefully transferred Eli into Daniel's arms. The little boy mumbled something in his sleep but didn't wake. Daniel stood very still, hardly breathing, feeling the weight of his son against his chest for the first time. Eli was warm and solid and real. His breath came in soft little puffs against Daniel's shirt. His hair smelled like sunshine and sand. Daniel looked down at his child's face, so peaceful, so innocent, and felt something fundamental shift inside him. This wasn't theoretical anymore. This wasn't about making up for past mistakes or proving he'd changed. This was about love, pure, fierce, overwhelming love for this little person he barely knew, but would die for, without hesitation. "Okay, car seat's ready," Naomi said softly. Daniel carefully lowered Eli into the seat. Naomi buckled him in with practiced efficiency, adjusting the straps and making sure everything was secure. "He'll sleep for about an hour," she said. "Then he'll wake up full of energy again and want to tell me everything about his day like I wasn't there for all of it." Daniel smiled. "That sounds perfect." Naomi closed the back door and turned to face him. For a moment they just stood there in the parking lot, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between them. "Same time next week?" Daniel asked, hardly daring to hope. Naomi bit her lip, considering. Then she nodded. "Same time." "But Daniel—" "I know. I'll be here. I promise. I was going to say—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "You did good today. He liked you." The simple words hit Daniel harder than he'd expected. His eyes burned. "Thank you," he whispered. Naomi got in the car. Through the window, Daniel watched as she adjusted the rearview mirror, checked on Eli one more time, started the engine. Then she rolled down the window. "Daniel?" He stepped closer. "Yeah? Don't disappear on us, okay? Whatever happens between you and me, don't let that affect showing up for him." "I won't," Daniel said firmly. "You have my word." Naomi held his gaze for another moment, then nodded and drove away. Daniel stood in the parking lot long after the car disappeared from view. The afternoon sun was warm on his face. His shirt had a small wet spot where Eli had drooled on it during his nap. He touched the spot gently, a strange smile crossing his face. He'd held his son today. His son had laughed at his jokes, held his hand, asked him to come back. It was the best day of Daniel's life. That evening, Daniel called Jack. "You busy?" he asked when his friend picked up. "Never too busy for you." "What's up?" "I met him today, my son. Really met him." There was a pause. "How did it go?" "Jack?" Daniel's voice cracked. "He's perfect. He's so perfect. And he liked me. He actually liked me." "Of course he did, man. You're pretty likable when you're not being an idiot." Daniel laughed, the sound half-sob. "He has my eyes, and he talks non-stop about dinosaurs, and he held my hand like it was the most natural thing in the world." "That's great, Daniel. Really." Naomi let me hold him while she set up his car seat. "He fell asleep on me, Jack. My kid fell asleep in my arms." "Sounds like you had a good day." "I did." Daniel wiped at his face. "I really did. And she said I can come back next week. She said I was good with him." "You are good with him. You're going to be a great dad." "I want to be," Daniel said quietly. "I want to be the father he deserves. The father I should have been from the start." "You can't change the past," Jack said. "But you're here now. That's what matters." They talked for another hour, about Eli, about Naomi, about all the things Daniel wanted to learn and do and be. When they finally hung up, Daniel felt lighter than he had in years. He opened his laptop and pulled up the letter he'd written to Naomi. He read it again, then added a few lines at the end. "Today was the best day of my life. Thank you for trusting me with that. I won't let you down. I promise." He saved it, but still didn't send it. Maybe some things were better shown than said. Before bed, Daniel looked up books about dinosaurs. If T-Rex and Triceratops were Eli's favorites, Daniel wanted to know everything about them. He wanted to be able to answer questions, to share his son's enthusiasm, to be someone Eli wanted to talk to. He fell asleep with his phone open to a website about the Cretaceous period, dreaming of sandcastles and small hands, and second chances he'd never thought he'd get. Across town, Naomi tucked Eli into bed. He was already half asleep again, worn out from the afternoon's adventures. "Mr. Daniel is nice," Eli mumbled, his words slurred with exhaustion. "You think so?" Naomi asked, pulling the covers up to his chin. "Yeah, he didn't laugh when I made the dinosaur sounds. And he built a really good castle." "He did build a good castle. Can he come again?" Eli's eyes fluttered open, suddenly worried. "He said he would. He's coming back, right?" Naomi's heart squeezed. This was what she'd been afraid of, Eli getting attached, counting on someone who might disappear. But Daniel had been there today. He'd been patient and kind and genuinely interested in their son. He'd looked at Eli like the little boy hung the moon. "Yes, baby," she said softly. "He's coming back." "Good." Eli smiled sleepily. "I like him." "I know you do. Do you like him, Mommy?" The question caught Naomi off guard. She thought about Daniel's face when he'd held Eli for the first time, the tears he'd tried to hide, the careful way he'd lowered their son into the car seat, like he was holding something infinitely precious. "I'm getting to know him again," she said carefully. "We'll see." But Eli was already asleep, his breathing deep and even. Naomi sat on the edge of his bed for a long time, just watching him sleep. Her beautiful boy, her whole world. She'd built a good life for them, a safe life, and now Daniel was here, wanting to be part of it. Part of her wanted to protect Eli from potential hurt, to keep their small family unit intact and safe. But another part of her remembered how Daniel had looked at their son today, with wonder and love and desperate hope, and she remembered loving Daniel once. Before the fear and the pain, there had been real love between them. "Please don't let us down," she whispered into the quiet room. "Please don't break his heart." She kissed Eli's forehead and left the room, pulling the door halfway closed behind her. Downstairs, Marcia was doing dishes in the kitchen. "He's asleep?" she asked. "Out like a light." Naomi leaned against the counter. "He had a good day. And how about you?" Marcia turned to face her daughter. "How was your day?" Naomi was quiet for a moment. "It was good. Daniel was really good with Eli, natural, patient. Eli loved him immediately. Of course he did. Kids can sense when someone genuinely cares." "I'm scared, Mama," Naomi admitted. "What if I'm making a mistake? What if he hurts Eli?" Marcia dried her hands and pulled Naomi into a hug. "You're doing the right thing. That boy deserves to know his father. And from what you've told me, Daniel is trying. That's all you can ask for right now." "You think so? Yesterday you were warning me about letting him back in." "I was," Marcia admitted, "and I still think you need to be careful. But I also think everyone deserves a chance to make things right, even people who've done wrong." Naomi pulled back, surprised. "What changed your mind?" "You did." Marcia touched her daughter's cheek gently. "I saw how you looked when you came home. You're hopeful, and I want you to have hope, baby girl. For Eli's sake and for yours." "I don't know if Daniel and I can ever be anything again," Naomi said. "There's too much history, too much hurt." "Maybe not," Marcia agreed, "but maybe you can be good co-parents. Maybe you can build something new that works for all of you. You don't have to have it all figured out right now." Naomi nodded, letting her mother's words sink in. That night, lying in bed, she thought about the day, about Eli's laughter, about Daniel's obvious love for their son, about the way he'd looked at her when she'd said he could come back, like she'd just given him the greatest gift in the world. Her phone buzzed with a text. "Thank you again for today. Sleep well." It was from Daniel. Simple, not asking for anything, just thanking her. Naomi stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed back, "You too. Same time next Saturday." She hit send before she could overthink it. A moment later, "I'll be there. I promise." Naomi put her phone on the nightstand and closed her eyes. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, its own questions. But tonight, she let herself feel something she hadn't allowed in a long time. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could make this work. The next 3 weeks fell into a rhythm that felt almost natural. Every Saturday at 10, Daniel met Naomi and Eli at the park. Sometimes they played on the playground equipment. Other times they took walks along the nearby creek, Eli running ahead to examine rocks and leaves, and anything else that caught his attention. Daniel learned that Eli hated broccoli but loved carrots, that he could recite the names of 20 different dinosaurs, that he had nightmares sometimes about monsters in his closet, but that singing "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star" helped him feel better. He learned these things because Naomi told him, sharing small pieces of their life in careful doses. And because Eli told him everything, the way 3-year-olds did, without filter, without holding back. "I don't like the dark," Eli announced one Saturday, while they built a fort out of fallen branches. But Mommy leaves the hallway light on, and then it's okay. That's smart, Daniel said, holding a branch steady while Eli positioned another one against it. Are you scared of the dark? Eli asked. Sometimes, Daniel admitted. When I was your age, I was scared of thunderstorms. Eli's eyes went wide. Really? Really, the loud noises scared me. My mom used to let me sleep in her room when there was a storm. My mommy lets me sleep with her too, Eli said excitedly. We're the same. Daniel's throat tightened. Yeah, buddy, I guess we are. Naomi watched these exchanges from her spot on the bench, her expression unreadable. Sometimes Daniel caught her almost smiling. Other times she looked sad, like she was mourning something. He never pushed, never asked for more than she was willing to give. On the fourth Saturday it rained. Daniel showed up anyway, standing under an umbrella in the parking lot, not sure if they'd come or not. His phone buzzed. Park's closed because of weather. Want to come to the bookstore instead? Eli's asking for you. Daniel's heart leaped. The bookstore, where Naomi worked. A piece of her world she was inviting him into. I'll be there in 10 minutes. The bookstore was warm and dry, filled with the smell of coffee from the small cafe in the corner. Eli spotted Daniel immediately and came running. Mr. Daniel! Mr. Daniel! Guess what? Daniel crouched down. What? I learned all the words to the dinosaur song. Want to hear? Absolutely. Eli launched into a surprisingly detailed song about different dinosaur species, complete with hand motions. Daniel watched, completely charmed, while Naomi stood behind the counter sorting books. When Eli finished, Daniel applauded. That was amazing. I know, Eli said matter-of-factly. Then he grabbed Daniel's hand. Come see the new books Mommy got. There's one about space dinosaurs. Space dinosaurs? Yeah, they're dinosaurs, but in space. Eli dragged Daniel toward the children's section, chattering the whole way. They spent the next hour looking at books, with Eli insisting Daniel read at least 5 of them out loud. Naomi worked nearby, helping customers, restocking shelves. But Daniel was aware of her presence, of the way she glanced over at them every few minutes. During a quiet moment, she came over with 2 cups of hot chocolate. One for each of you, she said. Eli, be careful not to spill. I won't. Eli took his cup carefully, already distracted by a new book he'd found. Naomi sat down in one of the small chairs beside Daniel. For a moment, they just watched Eli together. He talks about you all week, she said quietly. Every day it's, when is Mr. Daniel coming? Or can we call Mr. Daniel? Or I want to show Mr. Daniel my new toy. Daniel's chest felt tight. Is that okay? I don't know yet, Naomi said honestly. It's good that he likes you, but it also scares me. He's getting attached. I'm not going anywhere, Naomi. She looked at him then, really looked at him. You keep saying that, but how do I know you mean it? Because I'm here, Daniel said simply. Every Saturday in rain or shine. I'm here. 4 weeks isn't very long. Then I'll be here for 4 more, and 4 more after that. However long it takes for you to believe me. Something shifted in Naomi's expression. She opened her mouth to respond, but Eli interrupted. Mommy, Mr. Daniel, look at this picture. It's a T-Rex eating pizza. They both laughed, the serious moment breaking. But later, as Daniel was getting ready to leave, Naomi stopped him. Wednesday is Eli's birthday, she said, not quite meeting his eyes. He's turning 4. We're having a small party at my mom's house, just family and a couple of his friends from daycare. Daniel's heart pounded. Okay. He asked if you could come. Naomi finally looked at him. I told him I'd ask you. I'd love to come, Daniel said immediately, if you want me there. It's not about what I want, it's about what's good for Eli. But her voice was softer than the words suggested. Then I'll be there. Just tell me what time and what I can bring. 2 o'clock, and just yourself. Maybe a present if you want, but nothing expensive. He doesn't need more toys. Okay. Daniel paused. Thank you, Naomi, for including me. She nodded, already turning back toward the counter, but he caught the slight tremble in her hands as she picked up a stack of books. She was scared. He understood that. He was scared too, but they were trying. That had to count for something. Daniel spent 3 days agonizing over what to get Eli for his birthday. He wandered through toy stores, feeling completely lost. Everything seemed either too babyish or too advanced, too expensive or too cheap. Finally, he called Jack. I need help, he admitted. What do you get a 4-year-old boy who loves dinosaurs? Jack laughed. You're overthinking this, man. Get him something dinosaur-related and he'll love it. But what if he already has it? What if Naomi thinks I'm trying too hard? Daniel, breathe. It's a birthday present for a kid who already thinks you hung the moon. You could wrap up a rock and he'd be thrilled because it came from you." Daniel knew Jack was right, but it didn't make the decision any easier. In the end, he found a set of wooden dinosaurs that could be painted. They came with non-toxic paint and brushes. The box said ages 4 and up. Perfect. He also bought a children's book about a T-Rex who was scared of the dark but learned to be brave. As soon as he saw it, he knew Eli would love it. Wednesday arrived too fast and not fast enough. Daniel showed up at Marcia's house at exactly 2 o'clock, holding the carefully wrapped presents and feeling like he might throw up from nerves. The house was small but well kept, with a tidy yard and flowers in the garden. He could hear children's laughter coming from the backyard. He knocked on the front door. Marcia answered. She was shorter than he'd expected from Naomi's descriptions, with kind eyes that became considerably less kind when they landed on him. "You must be Daniel," she said. "Yes, ma'am. Thank you for having me." She didn't move from the doorway. "My daughter is giving you a chance because she has a good heart and because Eli deserves to know his father. I'm not as forgiving. I understand. If you hurt that little boy, if you disappoint him or let him down or make him cry, you'll have me to answer to. Are we clear?" "Yes, ma'am. Completely clear." Marcia studied him for a long moment. Then she stepped aside. "Party's in the back. Try to behave yourself." Daniel followed her through the house, his hands sweating around the presents. The backyard was decorated with colorful streamers and balloons. A small group of children ran around playing tag. Adults stood in clusters talking and laughing. And there, in the middle of it all, was Eli. He wore a birthday crown made of construction paper and glitter. His face lit up when he saw Daniel. "Mr. Daniel, you came!" He ran over and crashed into Daniel's legs in a hug. Daniel crouched down, setting the presents aside. "Of course I came. Happy birthday, Eli." "I'm 4 now. That's this many." Eli held up 4 fingers, his face serious. "Wow, 4 is pretty old." "I know. Mommy says I'm getting so big." Eli grabbed Daniel's hand. "Come meet my friends. This is Tyler and this is Sophia and that's Marcus. We go to school together." Daniel let himself be pulled into the chaos of the party. He played games with the kids, helped serve cake, and sang happy birthday with everyone else. Through it all, he was aware of Naomi watching him. She stayed close to her mother, the two of them talking quietly. Daniel tried not to feel self-conscious about their observation. After cake, it was time for presents. Eli tore through wrapping paper with gleeful abandon, exclaiming over each gift. A toy truck from Tyler's family, a set of crayons from Sophia, a stuffed triceratops from Marcus. When he got to Daniel's gift, he carefully read the tag. "To Eli, happy birthday from Mr. Daniel." "That's you?" Eli looked up at Daniel with excitement. "That's me," Daniel confirmed, his heart pounding. Eli ripped open the paper and gasped when he saw the wooden dinosaurs. "Mommy, look, I can paint them." "That's a wonderful gift," Naomi said, and Daniel thought he heard genuine warmth in her voice. Eli was already opening the second package, the book. His eyes went wide when he saw the cover. "It's about a T-Rex, and he looks scared." "Want me to read it to you later?" Daniel offered. "Yes." Eli threw his arms around Daniel's neck in an enthusiastic hug. "Thank you, Mr. Daniel. These are the best presents ever." Daniel's eyes burned. He hugged Eli back carefully, breathing in the smell of cake frosting and kid shampoo. "You're welcome, buddy. I'm glad you like them." The party wound down as the afternoon wore on. Parents came to collect their children. The backyard grew quiet. Eli, exhausted from excitement, curled up on a lawn chair with his head in Naomi's lap. She stroked his hair absently while talking to her mother. Daniel started cleaning up, gathering paper plates and empty cups, taking down streamers. "You don't have to do that," Naomi said. "I want to help." Marcia watched him work, her expression unreadable. Finally, she said, "Coffee?" Daniel looked up, surprised. "Sure, thank you." Inside, Marcia poured 3 cups of coffee and sat at the kitchen table. Naomi joined them, leaving Eli asleep outside where they could see him through the window. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Marcia said, "That was a good gift. Thoughtful. Thank you," Daniel said carefully. "My grandson has been talking about you non-stop for a month now. Mr. Daniel this and Mr. Daniel that." Marcia's eyes were sharp. "He's already in love with you." Daniel swallowed hard. "I love him too." "Do you?" It wasn't accusatory, just direct. "You barely know him." "I know enough," Daniel said. "I know he's smart and funny and kind. I know he has the biggest heart. I know he deserves a father who shows up for him, and I'm trying to be that person." "Trying isn't the same as doing." "Mama," Naomi said quietly, But Marcia continued, her gaze never leaving Daniel's face. "My daughter raised that boy alone, through sleepless nights and teething and potty training and all the hard parts you missed. She did it without help, without support from you." "I know," Daniel said, "and I hate that I wasn't there. If I could go back and change it, I would, but I can't. All I can do is be here now." "And what happens when it gets hard?" Marcia pressed. "When Eli throws tantrums or gets sick or needs you at 3 in the morning, are you going to stick around for the difficult parts or just the fun stuff?" "I'm going to stick around for all of it," Daniel said firmly. "The good, the bad, the messy, the scary, all of it. He's my son, I'm not going anywhere." Marcia studied him for a long, uncomfortable moment. Then she looked at Naomi. "What do you think?" she asked her daughter. Naomi wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. "I think he's been consistent so far. He shows up when he says he will. He's patient with Eli. He doesn't try to buy his way into our lives." She paused. "I think he's trying." "And is trying enough?" Marcia asked. Naomi met Daniel's eyes across the table. "I don't know yet, but I want to find out." Something passed between them. An understanding, maybe. Or permission for something neither of them was quite ready to name. Marcia sighed. "Your father wasn't consistent. He'd be there for a while, then disappear for months. It broke your heart every time." "Daniel isn't my father," Naomi said quietly. "No," Marcia agreed, "but he has the power to hurt you the same way, and to hurt my grandson worse." "I won't," Daniel said. "I promise I won't." "Promises are easy to make," Marcia said. "Keeping them is harder." "Then watch me keep them," Daniel said. "Watch me show up every single time. Watch me be the father Eli deserves. I know you don't trust me yet. I haven't earned it, but I will." Marcia was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood and refilled her coffee cup. "Time will tell," she said finally. "But Daniel, if you break my grandson's heart, there won't be anywhere you can hide from me." "I understand," Daniel said. Marcia's expression softened just slightly. "Good. Now, are you any good at putting furniture together? I bought Eli a new bookshelf for his room, and the instructions might as well be in Greek." Daniel blinked at the sudden change of subject. Yes, I can do that." "Good. It's in the garage. Get to work." It was clearly a dismissal, but also, maybe, an acceptance. Or at least a test he could pass with a screwdriver and some patience. Naomi smiled into her coffee cup. "I'll help." They spent the next hour in Eli's bedroom at Naomi's house, which was just down the street from Marcia's. The room was small but cheerful, painted light blue with dinosaur decals on the walls. Daniel carefully followed the instructions, while Naomi handed him pieces and hardware. They worked in comfortable silence, broken occasionally by soft comments. "Hand me that Allen wrench. Is this the right shelf? I think this piece is upside down." It was normal, domestic, like they were a team instead of two people carefully navigating the wreckage of their past. When the bookshelf was finally assembled, Daniel stood back to admire their work. "It looks good," he said. "It does." Naomi started arranging Eli's books on the shelves. Dinosaur books, bedtime stories, picture books about feelings and friendship. Daniel watched her work, his heart aching with things he couldn't say. "Naomi?" She turned to look at him. "Yeah? Thank you for letting me be part of today. It meant everything to me." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "He was so happy you came. That's all I want. For him to be happy. I want that too. I know you do." She set down the last book and faced him fully. "I can see how much you care about him. It's in everything you do, every way you look at him." "He's easy to love," Daniel said softly. "He is." Naomi's voice caught slightly. "Daniel, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." "Okay. What do you want from this? From us?" She gestured between them. "Is it just about Eli? Or is it about—" She stopped, like she wasn't sure how to finish. Daniel's heart pounded. "What do you mean?" "I mean, sometimes I catch you looking at me, and it's not the way you look at Eli. It's different. And I need to know if you're here because you want to be Eli's father, or if you're here because you want something else." Daniel swallowed hard. This was dangerous territory. One wrong word, and he could ruin everything. "I'm here because Eli is my son, and I want to be his father," he said carefully. "That's the most important thing. That will always be the most important thing." "But," Naomi prompted. Daniel took a breath. "But I'd be lying if I said I don't still have feelings for you. I never stopped—" He stopped himself, shook his head. "That's not fair to say. I don't have any right to feel that way after what I did to you." "No," Naomi agreed. "You don't." The words stung, but Daniel accepted them. "I know, and I'm not asking for anything from you. I'm not expecting anything. If all we ever are is co-parents, if that's all you can give me, I'll take it. Because being part of Eli's life is enough. Naomi studied his face for a long moment. Is it really? Is it enough? Yes, Daniel said firmly. It has to be. She nodded slowly. Good, because I'm not ready for anything else. I might never be ready. I understand. Do you? She crossed her arms, something vulnerable in her expression. Because 3 years ago, you were my whole world. I loved you so much it scared me. And then you... Her voice broke. You told me to get rid of our baby. You looked at me like I was ruining your life just by existing. Naomi, no, let me finish. She wiped at her eyes angrily. You destroyed me. It took me months to put myself back together. And then Eli came and he saved me. He gave me a reason to be strong. But Daniel, I can't go through that again. I won't. I would never. You don't know that, she said. You don't know what you'd do if things got hard again. If the reality of parenting becomes too much. If you meet someone else who doesn't come with all this baggage. There is no one else, Daniel said. And there's no version of my life now that doesn't include being Eli's father. I'm in this, Naomi, completely. She looked at him with eyes full of pain and hope and fear all mixed together. I want to believe you, she whispered. Then let me prove it, Daniel said. However long it takes. I'll prove it. They stood in Eli's room, surrounded by dinosaurs and books and the life Naomi had built for their son. Outside they could hear Marcia calling that Eli was waking up. Naomi took a shaky breath. Okay, we'll see. It wasn't forgiveness, it wasn't trust, but it was possibility. And for now, that was enough. That night, after Daniel had gone home and Eli was tucked into bed in his new bookshelf-adorned room, Naomi sat on her porch with a cup of tea. Her mother came out and sat beside her. You okay, baby girl? I don't know, Naomi admitted. Today was good, really good, and that scares me. Why? Because I'm starting to believe him. I'm starting to think maybe he really has changed. Maybe he really will stay. And if I believe that and I'm wrong, then you'll deal with it, Marcia said firmly. But Naomi, you can't live your whole life waiting for people to leave. Sometimes you have to take a risk on someone. Even after everything that happened? Especially after everything that happened. Marcia took her daughter's hand. You know what I see when I look at Daniel? I see a man who's terrified of losing something precious. That's not the look of someone who's going to walk away. But how do I know for sure? You don't, Marcia said. That's what makes it scary. But honey, did you see Eli's face today when Daniel showed up? That little boy was glowing. And Daniel looked at him like he'd die for him. I know, Naomi whispered. Your father never looked at you like that. Not once. Marcia's voice was sad, but matter-of-fact. Daniel isn't perfect. He made terrible mistakes. But he's here now, trying to make it right. That counts for something. Naomi leaned her head on her mother's shoulder. When did you get so wise? I've always been this wise. You just don't always listen. They sat together in the quiet evening, listening to crickets and the distant sound of the ocean. Inside, Eli dreamed of birthday cakes and painted dinosaurs and the man with kind eyes who read him stories about brave T-Rexes. And across town, Daniel lay awake, thinking about the little boy who called him Mr. Daniel and the woman who was slowly, carefully, letting him back into her life. Tomorrow was Friday. 5 more days until Saturday. 5 more days until he could see them again. He'd wait, for as long as it took. He wasn't going anywhere. 3 months passed. 3 months of Saturdays at the park. 3 months of slow, careful rebuilding. 3 months of Daniel showing up every single time, exactly when he said he would. Eli's vocabulary expanded to include phrases like my daddy instead of Mr. Daniel, a shift that happened gradually, naturally, until one day Naomi realized her son had stopped making the distinction. Daddy, watch this, Eli would shout from the top of the slide. Daddy, can you help me find my truck? Daddy, will you read me the T-Rex book again? Each time Daniel's eyes would get bright, and he'd nod, his voice thick with emotion. Of course, buddy. Naomi watched this transformation with a mixture of relief and terror. Relief because Eli was happy, because Daniel was proving himself day after day. Terror because her son's heart was now fully invested in a man who had once walked away. But Daniel didn't walk away. Not when Eli had a meltdown at the park because another kid took his shovel. Not when he came down with the flu and threw up all over Daniel's shoes. Not when he woke up from nightmares, crying for his daddy at 2 in the morning. That last one happened on a Tuesday night in late January. Naomi's phone rang at 2:17 a.m. she answered groggily, still half asleep. Naomi, I'm sorry to call so late. It was Daniel, and he sounded worried. I know you said to only call in emergencies, but Eli had a nightmare and he's asking for me. He won't stop crying. Naomi sat up, instantly awake. Put him on. She heard rustling, then Eli's tearful voice. Mommy? Hey baby, I'm here. What's wrong? I had a scary dream about monsters, and Daddy's not here and I need him. His voice broke on a sob. Naomi's heart clenched. She looked at the clock again. Sweetheart, it's really late. Please, Mommy. Please. She closed her eyes. This was a terrible idea. Letting Daniel come over in the middle of the night, letting him deeper into their lives, letting Eli depend on him even more. But her son was crying, and he wanted his father. Okay, she said quietly. Okay, baby, give the phone back to Daddy. Daniel's voice came back on. Naomi, come over, she said. I'll text you the address. Are you sure? No, but come anyway. 20 minutes later, there was a soft knock on her door. Naomi opened it to find Daniel in sweatpants and a t-shirt, his hair messy, looking like he'd thrown on clothes and run out the door. He's in his room, she said quietly, stepping aside to let him in. Daniel nodded and headed straight for Eli's bedroom. Naomi followed, standing in the doorway as Daniel sat on the edge of Eli's bed. Hey, buddy, he said softly. I heard you had a bad dream. Eli launched himself at Daniel, wrapping his small arms around his father's neck. There were monsters everywhere, and they were trying to get me, and you weren't here. I'm here now, Daniel said, rubbing gentle circles on Eli's back. The monsters can't get you. I won't let them. Promise? I promise. Daniel pulled back to look at Eli's face. You know what my dad used to tell me when I had bad dreams? Eli shook his head. He said that dreams are just our brain's way of practicing being brave. The monsters aren't real, but the bravery we use to face them is. And every time we have a scary dream and wake up okay, we get a little braver. Really? Eli's eyes were wide. Really? So that nightmare, that was just you practicing being brave. And look, you're okay. The monsters are gone. Eli thought about this seriously. So I'm brave now. The bravest, Daniel said solemnly. But even brave people need help sometimes. That's why you called me, right? Yeah. Eli yawned, already looking sleepy again. Will you stay until I fall asleep? Of course. Daniel lay down beside Eli, and the little boy curled into his father's side, his breathing already evening out. Daniel started singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star in a soft, slightly off-key voice. Naomi watched from the doorway, her throat tight. She'd sung that same song to Eli 1,000 times, but hearing Daniel sing it, seeing her son safe in his father's arms, something inside her shifted. This was real. This was Daniel choosing to be here at 2:30 in the morning, wearing mismatched socks and yesterday's t-shirt, singing lullabies to a child he'd only known for a few months, but loved like he'd been there from the beginning. When Eli was fully asleep, Daniel carefully extracted himself and tiptoed out of the room. Naomi was waiting in the hallway. Thank you, she whispered, for coming. You don't have to thank me. He's my son. I'll always come when he needs me. They stood in the dim hallway, close enough that Naomi could smell the faint scent of his soap, could see the worry still etched in his face. Do you want some tea? She asked. You drove all the way over here. You should at least stay for a bit. Daniel looked surprised. Are you sure? Yeah, come on. In the kitchen, Naomi put the kettle on while Daniel sat at the small table. The house was quiet, except for the soft tick of the clock and the hum of the refrigerator. He's been having more nightmares lately, Naomi said, getting 2 mugs from the cabinet. Growing pains, the pediatrician says. His brain is processing so much. Has he had them about monsters before? Sometimes. Usually it's about getting lost or me leaving him. She paused, her back still to Daniel, or about his father not being real. Daniel's breath caught. What? Naomi turned to face him. Last month, he had a nightmare that you were pretend. That he'd made you up and you weren't actually his daddy. He woke up crying, asking me to promise you were real. God, Naomi, I told him you were real, she continued. I told him you loved him, and you weren't going anywhere, and I realized that I believed it, that somewhere along the way I started trusting you again. The kettle whistled. Naomi turned off the stove and poured water over tea bags, her hands shaking slightly. That terrifies me, she admitted, bringing the mugs to the table. Trusting you, believing you'll stay, because if you leave, I won't. You keep saying that, because it's true. Daniel reached across the table, then stopped, his hand hovering in the air between them. Naomi, I know I don't have the right to ask you to trust me. I know I destroyed that. But I've been here for 3 months. I've shown up for every scraped knee, every bedtime story, every single moment you've let me be part of. I'm not going anywhere." Naomi looked at his outstretched hand. She thought about all the Saturday mornings, all the careful conversations, all the ways he'd proven himself day after day. Slowly, she reached out and took his hand. His fingers closed around hers, warm and solid and real. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Me too," Daniel admitted. "I'm scared of messing this up, of disappointing you, of not being the father Eli deserves. You are, though, the father he deserves." Naomi's eyes filled with tears. "He loves you so much, Daniel. And I—" She stopped, not sure if she was ready to finish that sentence. "And you?" Daniel prompted gently. "I'm getting there," she said. "I'm not where we were before. I don't know if I can ever be there again. But I'm not angry anymore, and I don't hate you. And sometimes when I see you with Eli, I remember why I fell in love with you in the first place." Daniel's eyes shone with unshed tears. "That's more than I ever thought I'd get, more than I deserve." They sat there, hands joined across the kitchen table, the tea cooling between them. "My mum called you Eli's father the other day," Naomi said. "Not Daniel or that man. She called you his father." "She did. She did. I think she's starting to forgive you too." "I never thought that would happen," Daniel admitted. "She's terrifying." Naomi laughed softly. "She is, but she's also fair, and she's seen how you are with Eli. That matters to her." "What matters to you?" Daniel asked. "What do I need to do to—" He stopped, shaking his head. "Sorry, that's not fair. You don't owe me anything." "No, it's okay." Naomi squeezed his hand. "What matters to me is consistency, showing up, being honest, putting Eli first." She paused. "And you've been doing all of that." "I want to do more," Daniel said quietly. "I want to be here for bedtime every night, not just on Saturdays. I want to help with daycare drop-offs. I want to be the person you call when something breaks, or when you need help, or when you just need an extra pair of hands." "That's a big step." "I know. And I'm not trying to rush you. I want you to know that I'm ready, whenever you are." Naomi was quiet for a long moment, studying their joined hands. "Lisa, my friend from work, she asked me the other day if we were getting back together." Daniel's heart stopped. "What did you tell her?" "I told her I didn't know, that we were figuring things out." Naomi looked up, meeting his eyes. "But Daniel, if we do this, if we try again, it can't be like before. We were kids then, playing at being adults. We have a child now, a real child who depends on us. We can't just jump into something without thinking it through." "I know, I agree. And I need to know that you want this. Want us for the right reasons. Not because you feel guilty about the past. Not because you think you owe me something, but because you actually want to build a life with me and Eli." Daniel stood up, still holding her hand, and moved around the table to crouch beside her chair so they were eye level. "Naomi Brooks," he said seriously, "I want to build a life with you and Eli more than I've ever wanted anything. Not because I feel guilty, though I do. Not because I owe you, though I do, but because when I'm with you two, I'm the best version of myself. You make me want to be better, do better, live better. And Eli—" His voice cracked. "Eli is the greatest gift I've ever been given. The fact that you're even considering letting me back into your life is more than I ever dreamed possible." Naomi's tears spilled over. "I want to believe you. Then believe me. I love you, Naomi. I never stopped loving you, even when I was too stupid and scared to admit it. And I'll spend the rest of my life proving it to you if you'll let me." She cupped his face with her free hand, her thumb brushing away a tear on his cheek. "This is crazy. 3 months ago I hadn't seen you in 3 years, and now you're here in my kitchen at 3 in the morning telling me you love me. Is it too fast?" Daniel asked, suddenly worried. "I can take it back. I can wait." "No," Naomi said. "Don't take it back." She took a shaky breath. "I don't know if I can say it back yet, but I want to. Eventually. I think I want to." "That's enough," Daniel said. "More than enough." She leaned forward and rested her forehead against his. They stayed like that for a long moment, breathing together, letting the enormity of the moment settle around them. "I should probably go," Daniel finally whispered. "Let you get some sleep. Or," Naomi said carefully, "you could stay, on the couch, in case Eli wakes up again." Daniel pulled back to look at her. "Are you sure?" "No, but I'm saying it anyway." He smiled, a real full smile that transformed his whole face. "Then I'll stay." Naomi got him a pillow and blanket and showed him where everything was. At the doorway to the living room, she paused. "Daniel?" "Yeah? Thank you for coming tonight, for being here. Always," he said simply. I'll always come when you need me." She nodded and headed to her room, but at the last second she turned back. "I think I'm falling for you again," she said quietly, "and it scares me to death." Before Daniel could respond, she disappeared into her bedroom, closing the door softly behind her. Daniel stood in the dark living room, his heart so full it felt like it might burst. She was falling for him again. It was more than he'd hoped for, more than he'd dared to dream. He lay down on the couch, pulling the blanket over himself, and stared at the ceiling with a smile on his face. Down the hall, Eli slept peacefully, no longer afraid of monsters. And in her room, Naomi lay awake, her hand pressed over her racing heart, wondering if she was brave enough to take this leap. The next morning, Eli woke up to find Daniel making pancakes in the kitchen. "Daddy!" he shrieked, running over in his dinosaur pajamas. "You're still here?" "I'm still here," Daniel confirmed, scooping Eli up for a hug. "I told you I wouldn't let the monsters get you. You stayed all night." "I stayed on the couch. Your mom said it was okay." Eli looked at Naomi, who had just emerged from her room, her hair messy and her eyes still sleepy. "Mommy, can Daddy stay for breakfast?" "He already is," Naomi said, but she was smiling. They ate pancakes together at the kitchen table, slightly burnt because Daniel had gotten distracted by Eli's story about a dream he'd had about flying dinosaurs, and Naomi found herself laughing at Daniel's exaggerated reactions to Eli's imagination. And then the pterodactyl said, "I'm the king of the sky," and all the other dinosaurs said, "Okay," Eli concluded proudly. "Wow," Daniel said, "that's quite a story." "It's not as scary as the monster dream," Eli said seriously. "The monster dream was bad, but you made it better." "That's what dads are for," Daniel said. Eli beamed. Then he looked between his parents, his little face thoughtful. "Are you and Mommy friends again?" Naomi and Daniel exchanged glances. "We're working on it," Naomi said carefully. "Good," Eli said matter-of-factly, "because it's better when we're all together." Then he went back to eating his pancakes, completely unaware of the impact his words had on the two adults. After breakfast, Daniel helped clean up, then reluctantly said he needed to go home and change for work. At the door, Eli hugged him goodbye. "Will I see you on Saturday?" "Definitely on Saturday," Daniel promised. "And maybe before then, if your mom says it's okay." Eli looked hopefully at Naomi. "We'll see," she said, but she was smiling. After Daniel left and Eli was distracted by his toys, Naomi's phone buzzed with a text. "Thank you for last night, for letting me stay, for everything." She stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Thank you for coming." Eli slept the rest of the night without any more nightmares. A pause then. "And how did you sleep?" Naomi bit her lip. She thought about lying, about keeping that last wall up between them, but she was tired of walls. "Better than I have in a long time," she typed. "Knowing you were here." The response came quickly. "I can be here any time you need me. Just say the word." Naomi's heart squeezed. "I'm starting to believe that. Good. Believe it because it's true." She set her phone down and looked at Eli, who was making his dinosaurs have an elaborate conversation about sharing toys. "Eli," she said. He looked up. "Yeah, Mommy? What would you think if Daddy started coming over more often? Not just on Saturdays." Eli's whole face lit up. "Really? Every day?" "Maybe not every day, but more often." "Yes!" Eli jumped up and down. "Yes, yes, yes. Can he come for dinner? Can he read me bedtime stories? Can he help me paint my dinosaurs?" Naomi laughed. "We'll figure it out. But yeah, sweetheart, he can do those things." Eli ran over and hugged her legs. "This is the best day ever." Naomi stroked his curls, her heart full and terrified and hopeful all at once. Maybe this was crazy. Maybe she was moving too fast, trusting too easily. But she'd seen Daniel at 2:30 in the morning, tired and worried and determined to comfort his son. She'd seen him make terrible pancakes with a smile on his face. She'd seen him look at Eli like the little boy was the answer to every question that mattered. And she'd felt her own heart opening again slowly, carefully, like a flower turning toward the sun. Maybe love wasn't about being perfect. Maybe it was about showing up day after day, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. Daniel had been showing up. For 3 months he'd been showing up, and Naomi was starting to believe he always would. Over the next few weeks, Daniel became a regular presence in their lives. He came for dinner on Wednesdays. He picked Eli up from daycare on Fridays. He spent Saturday mornings at the park and Sunday afternoons helping Eli paint his wooden dinosaurs. Marcia watched this integration with cautious approval, no longer pulling Naomi aside to warn her, but not quite ready to fully embrace Daniel either. Then came the day Eli fell at daycare and needed stitches. Naomi was at work when she got the call. She immediately called Daniel, her hands shaking. "Eli's hurt. He needs stitches. I'm leaving work now, but I'm 30 minutes away and he's scared and I'm 10 minutes from the daycare," Daniel interrupted. "I'll go get him. Meet us at the hospital." "Daniel, I've got him, Naomi. Go." Daniel beat her to the hospital by 15 minutes. When Naomi rushed into the emergency room, she found them in a corner of the waiting area. Eli sat on Daniel's lap, his forehead bandaged, tears streaking his face. Daniel was reading him the T-Rex book in a soothing voice, one arm wrapped securely around their son. "Mommy!" Eli reached for her. Naomi gathered him into her arms, kissing his face, checking him over. "Are you okay, baby? What happened?" "I fell off the slide," Eli said, his lip wobbling. "And there was blood, and I was so scared. But then Daddy came and he said I was brave, and he stayed with me the whole time." Naomi looked at Daniel over Eli's head. His shirt had blood on it, Eli's blood, and his eyes were red-rimmed, but he was smiling gently. "They said he needs about 4 stitches, Daniel said quietly. "They're going to call us back soon." "Thank you," Naomi whispered, "for being here. Where else would I be?" When they called Eli back, both parents went with him. Daniel held Eli's hand while the doctor put in the stitches, distracting him with stories about brave knights and dragons. Naomi stood on the other side, stroking Eli's hair, her heart aching at every whimper. "You're doing so good, buddy," Daniel said. "Almost done. You're the bravest kid I know." "Braver than you were with nightmares?" Eli asked through tears. "Way braver," Daniel confirmed. "You're basically a superhero now." When it was over, Eli had a small bandage on his forehead and a sticker from the nurse declaring him a brave patient. He was exhausted, clinging to both parents as they left the hospital. "Can we all go home together?" Eli asked sleepily. "I don't want Daddy to leave." Naomi and Daniel looked at each other over his head. "Okay," Naomi said softly. "Daddy can come home with us." At the house, they settled Eli on the couch with his favorite blanket and put on a dinosaur movie. He fell asleep within minutes, his head on Daniel's lap, one hand clutching Naomi's. They sat like that for a long time, their son asleep between them, the afternoon sun streaming through the windows. "I was so scared," Naomi finally said, "when they called and said he was hurt." "I know. Me too." Daniel's hand shook slightly as he stroked Eli's hair. "I got there and he was crying and there was blood and I just—" His voice broke. "I would have done anything to take that pain from him." "That's what being a parent feels like," Naomi said quietly. "That terror, that helplessness, that overwhelming love that makes you want to protect them from everything." "I missed so much," Daniel said, his eyes filling with tears. "His first words, his first steps, all those moments I can never get back. And today, seeing him hurt, it just made me realize how much I've lost." "Hey," Naomi reached over Eli to take Daniel's hand. "You can't change the past, but you're here now. You were here when he needed you today. That's what matters." "I want to always be here," Daniel said. "Not just for emergencies, for everything, the boring stuff, the hard stuff, the beautiful everyday moments. I want to be his father, really be his father, not just visit on weekends." "What are you saying?" Daniel looked at her, his expression vulnerable but determined. "I'm saying I want more. I want to be a family. The 3 of us. Together." Naomi's breath caught. "Daniel, I'm not asking you to marry me," he said quickly. "I know we're not there yet. But Naomi, I want to be here every day. I want to wake up in the same house as my son. I want to help with bedtime and breakfast and everything in between. And I want—" He paused. "I want to wake up with you too. Not just as Eli's mom, as the woman I love." Tears streamed down Naomi's face. "That's a big step, I know. And if you're not ready, I'll wait. I'll wait as long as it takes. But I need you to know that's what I want. That's what I'm working toward. A real family. With you." Naomi looked down at Eli, sleeping peacefully despite the day's trauma. She thought about Daniel at 2:30 in the morning, singing lullabies. She thought about him rushing to the hospital, blood on his shirt, fear in his eyes, but steady and strong for their son. She thought about 3 months of Saturdays, of consistency, of slowly rebuilt trust. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I know. If we do this and it doesn't work out, it will work out," Daniel said firmly. "Because I will do everything in my power to make it work. I'll go to counseling. I'll read every parenting book ever written. I'll learn to communicate better, to be present, to never run from hard conversations. Whatever it takes, Naomi, I'm all in." She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the truth in his eyes. He wasn't the scared 28-year-old who'd run from responsibility anymore. He was a man who'd done the work, who'd grown up, who'd proven himself day after day. "Okay," she said softly. Daniel's eyes widened. "Okay, okay, let's try. Let's be a family." Naomi smiled through her tears. "But we do it right this time. Slow, honest, with open communication and couples counseling and—" Daniel leaned over Eli and kissed her. It was soft and sweet and tasted like tears and hope. When they pulled apart, Naomi was crying harder, but she was also smiling. "I love you," she said. "I think I never stopped loving you. But Daniel, if you hurt us—" "I won't," he promised. "I swear to you I won't. I'll spend every day of the rest of my life showing you that I mean it." Eli stirred between them, his eyes fluttering open. "Mommy, Daddy?" "We're right here, baby," Naomi said. "Are you kissing?" Eli asked groggily. "Like in the movies?" "Maybe a little," Daniel admitted. Eli smiled sleepily. "Good. That means we're a real family now." Then he closed his eyes again, completely content. Naomi and Daniel looked at each other and laughed quietly. "Out of the mouths of babes," Naomi said. "He's a smart kid," Daniel agreed. "Gets it from his mom." They sat there as the afternoon faded to evening, their son safe between them, their hands joined, their hearts cautiously, carefully, beautifully opening again. 4 months later, on Eli's first day of pre-K, both parents walked him to his classroom. Eli wore his favorite dinosaur backpack and his light-up shoes. He held both their hands, swinging between them, completely unafraid. "You're going to have so much fun," Naomi said, fighting back tears. "I know," Eli said confidently. "And then when I come home we can all have dinner together, and you can hear about my whole day." "We'll be here," Daniel promised. "Both of us." At the classroom door, Eli hugged them both, then ran inside without looking back, already chattering with another kid about dinosaurs. Naomi wiped at her eyes. "He's growing up so fast." Daniel pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. "He's going to be amazing, just like his mom." They walked back to the car, hand in hand. Daniel had officially moved in 3 weeks ago. His clothes in the closet, his toothbrush next to hers, his presence a constant comfort in their home. It hadn't been perfect. They'd had arguments about discipline and bedtime routines, and whose turn it was to do dishes. They'd had hard conversations about the past, about hurt and forgiveness, and what they needed from each other going forward. But they'd worked through it all, together. "My mum invited us for dinner tomorrow," Naomi said as they drove home. "She's making pot roast." "Your mum invited me to dinner voluntarily, without you having to convince her?" Naomi laughed. "Shocking, I know. I think she actually likes you now. Only took me half a year of consistent behavior." "That's what it takes," Naomi said, but her tone was warm. "Consistency, showing up, being present." Daniel brought her hand to his lips and kissed it. "I'll keep showing up, every single day, for the rest of our lives." "That's a long time." "Not long enough," Daniel said. "I have 3.5 years to make up for, plus forever to look forward to. I'm just getting started." Naomi looked at him, this man who'd hurt her, who'd grown, who'd become the father their son deserved and the partner she'd always hoped for, and felt her heart swell with love and gratitude and hope. "I'm glad you came into that bookstore," she said softly. "I'm glad fate or chance or whatever it was brought us back together." "Me too," Daniel said. "Best worst day of my life, seeing you there and realizing what I'd missed. But it led to this, to us, to our family." That evening, after dinner and bath time and stories, they tucked Eli into bed together. "Good night, sweetheart," Naomi said, kissing his forehead. "Sweet dreams." "No more nightmares," Eli said confidently, "because you're both here now. The monsters can't get me when you're both here." "That's right," Daniel said, ruffling his hair. "We've got you, always. I love you, Mommy. I love you, Daddy." "We love you too, baby," Naomi said, her voice thick with emotion. They turned off the light and stood in the doorway for a moment, watching their son drift off to sleep, safe and loved and whole. In the hallway, Daniel pulled Naomi into his arms. "Thank you," he whispered, "for giving me this chance, for trusting me, for letting me be part of this beautiful life you built." "Thank you for fighting for us," Naomi replied, "for showing up, for proving that people can change, can grow, can be better." They stood there in the dim hallway, holding each other, listening to their son's soft breathing from the next room. This wasn't the life either of them had planned. It was better. It was real and messy and sometimes hard, but it was built on honesty and consistency and love that had survived doubt and fear and the weight of past mistakes. It was forgiveness lived out daily. It was second chances earned through action, not just words. It was a fractured family made whole again, not through perfection, but through the simple, powerful choice to keep showing up. Outside, the sun set over their small North Carolina town, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Inside, three hearts beat in sync. A mother who'd learned that forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. A father who'd learned that love meant showing up even when it was hard. And a little boy who taught them both that family wasn't about where you started, but about who chose to stay, and they all chose to stay. Every day they chose each other, and that made all the difference. The end.